Live stream. I forgot to turn the music off first. Um, anyway, welcome back to a Monday night live stream. As we talked about last week, probably switching back to Mondays. Something, it just seems to work better for most people. So I think we're going to be on Mondays for a while. Um, but we have an active chat as usual. So let's go get to it right away. We got Nils, who actually beat David into chat, which was a first. We have Jeremy, I believe from Australia or Netherlands, I forget. Tony is here. David's interested in the breakdown how the show went. Well, we'll get to that. I didn't get to watch as much as I had hoped, so my recap will basically be based off of some information that I've seen and gathered. I have some pictures I want to show you. In full disclosure, I wasn't there. I don't work for CBS. I had no affiliation with the Super Bowl. I'm just talking about what I've seen online. I almost thought about waiting. I was like, should I wait a little bit? And then I was like, nah. But yes, that'll. For those who don't know, I run an hourly speed test, and it kills my upload. So Jeremy's in the house. Welcome in, Jeremy. Kevin, I think you're a new person. Welcome in. Glad to see you here. Um, I think I already said hello to Jeremy. This looks like I've said hello to everybody who's commented in chat. If you're here watching and haven't commented, please comment. Let me know you're here. And if you're new to the channel, let me know. We've had a pretty good week in subscribers, about 5 or 6, I think, at this point. We're getting up there. We're not there yet to the monetization level, but right now we are sitting at 1,472 subscribers, and the watch time is 2,662. Not sure where it was last week, but that's definitely higher than it has been, so it's ticking up. Looks like there are 7 of you watching, 3 likes. So I appreciate. David says, I'm new. No, David, you've been around a while, which I appreciate. That's not a knock on you at all. I do appreciate you all being here. So I guess let's get started. So, and there's Joe. Welcome in, Joe. As I stated before, I do not work for CBS. I'm not affiliated with the Super Bowl in any way, shape, or form. The pictures I'm going to show tonight, I'm actually getting from sportsvideo.org, which we could take a look at. So all the pictures I'm going to show tonight are coming from the Sports Video Group. They are a great place. If you're interested in sports, they have a lot of articles. I didn't get a chance to read any of these yet. I just kind of perused them today before starting the stream. I saw some pictures I wanted to share. They don't seem to have the numbers yet, which I've seen some early numbers, but I don't know if I believe them. But they also don't have the article about being in the truck necessarily. So we'll go off what we have. I was not in Vegas, so therefore I don't really know how it looked. But we can start off with general thoughts. From what I could tell, the game was produced very well. I didn't see any giant issues. There was no real distribution issues. CBS has multiple backups. We had multiple backups, and we didn't have to use any of them. So I think that was a great night from a production standpoint. I haven't heard any stories about any issues with the trucks or the power or whatever it is. I saw some people complaining about the audio for the halftime show. Sports Video Group actually has a interesting article about the sound for the halftime show. So if you are interested in that, you can go to Sports Video Group or sportsvideo.org and read through their little article about how the video is different or how the audio is different than in the previous years, which might explain why some people had issues with it. Uh, excuse me. Yeah, David says, Joe, you're late. And it's Josephus. Ross Video has some photos of their. Okay. I have not seen those photos. I, if you let us know where you saw those, I might go look them up. Be great if you could share that. You probably can't share the link, but if you could just tell me where they are, I'd go find them. Nils, how is the backup being delivered? Well, CBS uses a satellite for distribution, and they have their two main feeds, which are super high quality. And I will say the one thing I did notice last night is the colors on the broadcast seemed really good, like really good, and the picture quality was really good. CBS broadcast a satellite signal to the stations at about 90 megabits per second. Now they don't use all of that, but they use a chunk of that, and it's MPEG 4 422. Actually, I think it's AVC. Now my brain is having a moment. Anyway, so yeah, CBS delivers, two signals to us at all times, and then they actually for the Super Bowl lit up a backup path on a different transponder. Then they had a satellite failure backup feed, and then they had a KU band backup feed in case there was issues with the C-band feed. So they, in theory, had three different feeds in addition to the two feeds they usually do, which they did not have to go to. And I haven't seen any broadcaster actually have to go to a backup feed for any reason. I've seen people have power issues. I think that was in San Francisco a couple years ago. They had power issues, or was that New Orleans? I don't remember now. Anyway, so we had essentially five ways of receiving the CBS signal, plus we had interstation routing. So we had plenty of ways to bring the signal to you. So that's how CBS did that. Like I said, I didn't really watch a whole lot of the game, the commercials or halftime or whatever it is. In my opinion, the halftime show is going to win over half the audience, and it's going to either bother or annoy to high hell the other half. Like halftime shows never go over as everybody wins, because someone's going to hate it and someone's going to love it. It's always the case. No matter what artist you put up there, it seems like you're always going to have that. Oh, Jeremy says on Insta. Okay. Hey, Toro, welcome in. Glad to see you can make it. So generally speaking, my thought is, I always think pregame goes too long. It's like 7 hours of pregame for a game that just seems weird. And the game seemed to go well. The first half kind of was halftime show, I found myself, rocking along to it at times. And then the second half got a lot better in terms of gameplay. And then, of course, anytime you could have overtime, that just ramps things up. So, in all, it was a great night for, I think, everybody. I've heard of some issues in a couple markets here and there, but nothing groundbreaking, nothing that was disastrous. I think the issues were resolved pretty fast, and just not going to disclose, that kind of stuff. But basically, I think it was a good night. I think it all went well. A lot of planning goes into these things, and so they should come off, flawlessly. issues in the market, different cities, like for example, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Las Vegas, different markets. Sometimes referred to as DMAs or designated market areas. Um, that's what when I say markets, that's what I'm referring to. So there were a couple issues last night that I'm aware of in different cities. Nothing huge from what I gathered, but definitely a problem. But you're gonna have that. I mean, uh, I heard in one city a break rolled over the game instead of when it was actually supposed to air, so people lost like 2 minutes of the game. That typically always seems to happen somewhere because in this day and age of things being automated, if you and I don't know why you would ever do this, but if you had like clock starts on programs on breaks, like where you estimate when the break's going to start, let's say 9:11, like if the break's going to start at 9:11, then if you have a clock start, that means the break's going to roll at 9:11 no matter what happens. And that seems to be the issue sometimes, where people just have these clock starts because they assume every segment's let's just say 10 minutes in length, and so therefore it usually happens once a year to some station where it's like, hey, the break rolled and it shouldn't have, or the station goes off the air temporarily or whatever it is. So that's what I'm referring to by market and issues in certain markets. But there are 210 markets in America that are measured, and so there are 210 ish. In this case, CBS stations. Next year, it's Fox stations. Then there's ABC and NBC, I think, have it. So there are 210 chances to screw it up. Is the way I always talk about it and refer to it. So, but yeah, I say the one thing that would probably impress me the most, which is what I'm going to show you guys, at least for now, is CBS had their set on the fountains at the Bellagio, which I just thought was pretty cool. And having been to Vegas last year, having walked by this, we didn't get to see the Bellagio because the F1 race was the following week, or yeah, it was the following weekend. So we didn't really get to see the fountains, but I wish I had known that there was a race going on. I would have not went the week I went, but whatever. So I do want to show you some pictures that I found interesting. And again, these all come from Sports Video Group. Please, by all means, go check them out because they do great coverage. Like I was talking about, the CBS set was actually at the Bellagio, and they have fountains. I'm sure you've all seen the fountains. If you haven't, they're a pretty cool fountain show. And so I actually have some graphics to share. These are taken from Sports Video Group. But I guess let's start with the basics first. This is a picture I grabbed from the TV last night. This is where the game was. And for reference, oh my God, Mandalay Bay is to the left in this photo. And actually, I wish I could show you. I kind of want to highlight something. Hold on a second. So, here's the stadium. I'm not sure what all of this stuff is, but you can only imagine that there's other media or press events or whatever it is. This area right here is where the field goes outside. If you haven't seen anything about this stadium, I would look it up on YouTube. I actually watched a 3-hour, 6-part series or whatever it was on how they made the stadium. That was pretty interesting. But the football field actually goes out side here, and this is where it sits. And then I saw on social media that this is where the TV trucks are, and there were a lot of them. I think there were, well, I forget exactly, but we can go there in a second. But basically, this is where all the TV trucks sits. So the stadium's here. This is a whole football field. So in essence, they're a football field and a half away from the venue itself, which tells me everybody these days does it, but it's all fiber based. It's all IP based. No one's running SDI cables or analog audio cables. I mean, from the truck to the stadium. So that had to be all fiber based. I don't see in this picture anything flying overhead. So I'm guessing there's probably conduit or some sort of tunnel system to get down here. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know, but I'm guessing that this must run underground somehow. This stadium's new, so I'm guessing they planned this all in advance. Welcome in, David. No problem. Glad you're here. So if we go back to my, yeah, David says they probably would have patched it. I'm guessing this is the usual truck parking, and therefore there probably is a bunch of hatches, if you will, or boxes that are pre-wired that go inside. So this is probably the usual truck spot, if I had to guess. All right, so like I said, there's the stadium. One of the things I did grab off of the social media pages is this CBS by the numbers. This one blew me away when I saw it. If you haven't seen this, we're going to go over it. So CBS coverage. Now, I believe this includes everything in Vegas that CBS had. 165 cameras. That is a lot of cameras. 24 of those cameras had 4K zoom capabilities. They had 6 Doink cameras, which were actually inside the uprights. What I recall of the game, they did not actually need those or use them because none of the footballs actually hit the uprights. But either way, they were prepared for it. I saw some video on it, how they were doing it earlier, but they have 24 robotic cameras, which probably were used for beauty shots or in the uprights. Excuse me. 20 pylon cams at the end zones. That is a lot of pylon cams. 23 augmented reality cameras, which I didn't see a whole lot of that, but then again, I'm guessing those are probably for the Nickelodeon special stream they do. There were 5 sky cams or fly cams. I read an article about 3 of them, which is interesting. They had 3 drones. I didn't see any drone shots other than the one, I think the previous photos from. 5 depth of field cameras, which are basically digital SLRs, and are the cool shots of the team celebrating after they score a touchdown. There were 6 sets, 49 replay machines, and the number that blew me away was the 600 plus channels of recording and playback. 49 replay machines means big old machines that have a lot of inputs and outputs. And I mean, if you're taking 600 feeds and you got 49 machines, that means each machine is doing more than 12. So I know that the EVS replay machines, I think, can do 16 channels, and you can do like 8 in, 8 out, or whatever, in some combination of, I think, 4, I'm not mistaken. So that's a lot of replay machines. And then, of course, there are 19 trucks. And, from this photo, you can see there are, it looks like maybe 10 or 12 trucks in that photo. So speaking of the set and the Bellagio one, I wanted to show you this photo. Here's a picture of Paris from the Paris Hotel, it looks like. and you can see that there's at least 2 or 3 sets down there right on the water. And here's a better photo of that location, kind of the opposite direction we were just looking. And then you have the actual set for pregame. Here's where they were doing a bunch of the pregame show from, with the beautiful hotels behind it and the fountains. I know from that same sports video article, this is one of the trucks, or 2 of the trucks here, that did the pregame show. These are from a company called F&F. They are based out of Florida. They do a lot of work for CBS. Here is the front row of that truck, at least from what I gathered. You can see the monitor wall. Looks like they were using Live View for some remotes. They had a Sphere camera, it looks like. And I'm sure this was taken during rehearsals the previous day or whatever it is. But the one thing I did notice last night, speaking of special cameras, I did notice this camera, and Sports Video has a thing about this one too. This is a little track camera that was in the booth. And at one point, I remember seeing in the game, they took, the host, and the camera's kind of slowly moving in front of them. And I was like, they put a glide camera or a fly camera or what do you want to call this? I don't even know what the official name is. But, they put this camera right up on a track and had it going in front of them. It was very subtle. I mean, I noticed it, but the viewers at home probably had no idea. But, for this event, they just go all out. I mean, when you're getting $7 million for an ad, I mean, you can afford to do things like that. So, let's go back to the chat. It was an awesome game. Oops. For the most part. So, are you referring to the Super Bowl coverage itself, or because it was a CBS event, so a bunch of freelancers and people who work for CBS were there doing the things. Most stations do not cover the Super Bowl directly, so unless you're like from San Francisco or you're from Kansas City, you are probably just using your network's feed from or crews because Fox or ABC could send one crew out. They can do their whole bunch of interviews and whatnot, and they send it out to all the affiliates. So unless you're in the 2 markets, actually there's three people who usually go. There's usually the home team, away team, and then the host city. Their stations in those markets or cities probably were there every day for days. We didn't send anybody because no team of local interest went. So therefore, we didn't send a crew. Most stations wouldn't send a crew unless you were from, that city or your team was in that. That's like the old BBC News studio, but upside down. One thing I did also want to talk about briefly for this group, I think especially you might be interested in this, was Sports Video Group shared this graphic. And this is how far behind, if you're watching, how far you were behind the actual real time. Some of these numbers just honestly blow me away. To know if you were watching on, Fubo TV, that what you were watching happened a minute and a half ago, essentially, like that is crazy. I mean, even if you're watching on Paramount Plus, which is owned by CBS, or sorry, they own CBS, Paramount does, you are 42 seconds behind. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I just thought that was this graphic is very interesting to me, and I figured if anybody in this audience or anybody was interested in this as well, it might be this group of people. I can tell you from personal experience. I was at a stadium in the press box, and we had the game on a TV, of course, at a press box. So I'm watching the game happen with my own eyes, and then I could look up and watch the game happen, the same play happen again on the over-the-air television station about 22 or 23 seconds behind. And that was just straight like linear TV. That wasn't going across the internet. So to be to be 86.75 seconds behind real time. I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, to know what you're watching happened a minute ago. I I just find it interesting. So, Toro says, I'd imagine all the video being collected easily exceeded 1 terabytes per second. Yes, I can. I mean, the new video routers, they're all 2110 based or SMPTE 2110 based. I forget the amount of data that can flow through those things, but it's crazy. Oops, chestnut in the air. So if there's ever a game or event where a bunch of networks are covering, is there a case where they would collaborate, or is it too competitive? It depends. In certain instances, like court cases, you're required to share. You'll notice if you ever pay attention to certain court cases, they all have the same shot because it's usually one photog in the room, and then that video is being fed out to everybody. We call it a pool feed. Why it's called a pool feed, I don't remember, but why is it called a pool feed? Yeah, anyway, so it's a pool feed. I've been a part of that before. Basically, the judge would grant a local station the right to be the pool. When you are being the pool feed, you are essentially not working for your station, you are working for everybody. So you don't wear your station's clothing, you wear like all black, you have to pretend like you're always recording, you're always on air, if you will. So your movements are very slow and smooth, they're very deliberate, and you have to just show things equally. Now that's for court. For big events, usually the networks go. Local stations don't have the funds necessarily to go to every event. So usually for like big political rallies, you'll see the networks there. Or a big political event, you'll see the networks front and center. And then you might have the local stations. If it's a drive, like, an hour drive, they'll be there. But if it's anything longer than that, probably won't be there. So there really isn't a good written rule about when you share video and you don't. But a lot of people are competitive, especially at the network level. What was I going to say? In fact, a lot of the things you see about like slanted bias, whatever it is, that's usually at the network level. Your local stations are less like that. They're still competitive. And people may have some slight biases, but they're usually a lot less because they're local people and they're not talking about the big hot button topics like the networks want to cover. I'm talking about cable channels mostly. I'm sure you can figure out which ones I'm talking about, but you basically have cable channels that are competitive as hell and fight about and talk about anything that's fires people up. Then you kind of have like the network level broadcast. They're competitive. They talk about main topics, but they don't usually go too crazy. But these days, who knows? Then you have like the local level where it's like your neighbors are the anchor or reporter, and you'll notice that their coverage of things is a lot more fair and balanced because they're local and they want to present both sides. So as you go higher up, I think you kind of lose some of the connection to reality. At least that's what it seems like these days. So hopefully that answered your question. I kind of went off on a little tangent there. What causes those long delays? Latency is very nuts. Yes. So from what I understand, and I've played with this a little bit, but I'm by no means an expert. From what I understand, HLS, which is how most people stream, is a file like based thing. So like the first server that you stream to. So in my case, I'm streaming to YouTube, but in the case of the Super Bowl, CBS is streaming to their platform, and there probably is only there's probably redundant encoders. I mean, I guarantee there are, but they're probably not. There's not 70 encoders. So let's just say there's, for illustration purposes, there's one encoder, and you know what? You might like the paint. You might like the paint illustration. We'll do paint again. So what causes long delays on streaming? Well, let's take a look. So let's just say here's the encoder. Oops. This is the encoder, and it's going to be pushing out to, we'll just do the cloud. This is a bad illustration, but hey. And so this pushes out, here, and we have the encoder. And then this is like server 1. And so if you're a viewer, and you're the first one in, you might get a connection to this server. But let's say you're the 500th person in. Well, this server can't handle you. So instantly there's now 2 servers, and this one sends it to this one, and then you're here. So first one in, 1,000th, person in. And then, that server, oh, the demand's going up. We got to get more in. So in theory, this should go like this, but it also could go like this. And then you wouldn't have this connection anymore. So now if you're like the 1,000,000th person in, or let's say you're the 5,000th, now you got, let's count them up. You have 1 delay, 2 delay, and then you have 3 delays. And these are just instances in the cloud that get spun up as the demand increases. So that's the way I understood it. Now this is based off some old school thought, and whatnot, but that's kind of the way I always understood it. Because you never know how many people are going to stream the event, and you obviously don't want to have 1,000,000 encoders. So the encoder points to at least the first endpoint, and then this probably gets duplicated. Like I said, this link is probably not real. It probably would come, like I said, off of this one. And there may not even be people here. This first server may be only seating people at their servers. So if you enjoyed that little demonstration, hopefully it made sense. Let's go back to the chat and see if it made sense. Toro says PowerPoint's way better for drawing. Oops. I haven't used PowerPoint in forever. I do like Draw.io. I don't think I have Draw.io in here. I do not. I should probably install Draw.io because Draw.io is great. Um, Things like this make me angry. Yeah, um, multicast on the internet would probably be a very interesting thing. Um, which was actually kind of thing interesting because if you remember, I don't know if you saw it or not, when Amazon got the rights for Thursday Night Football, one of the things they were talking about was trying to eliminate or solve this issue. Um, they, from what I read, built some sort of protocol or they did something with the protocol to help like make sure that the video arrived at the same time or within fairly close to each other. I don't recall what that actually is. I don't know if Joe's on here and remembers hearing about that or not. Um, but yeah, I think people are trying to solve it. And I'm sure if anybody can, it's Amazon. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. You are definitely watching video that's lagging behind. Jeremy like says LibreOffice, Impress, or Draw would work well for diagrams. Yeah, I'll have to check those out. Like I said, I like Draw.io. I use it all the time at work, um, and that is pretty good. So I use that. Let's go back up to a question I missed. Nils says, "What about revenue costs? Is there a fixed cost for every network or fixed revenue share?" Yeah, we every CBS. This goes across anybody, any affiliate, ABC, NBC, whatever. You pay the network for access to the network, and then in exchange, the networks give you a slot. So uh, typically in a football game, it would be like end of first half, start of the second half, maybe end of third quarter, end of game. So you might get your four breaks in the game. Um, and they basically, that's so they say, here's where you're going to air your breaks. And so you get, to air your breaks in those four holes provided or five holes or whatever, depends on the sporting event. Um, It also depends who's producing the event. Like a CBS game or a Fox game might only have four breaks. But if you were to, let's say, air your local football team, like high school football game, you would have all the breaks. Now you wouldn't make as much money because each break or each ad spot would be less, but you would also then own all the breaks. So in a football game last night, you usually get four or five internal breaks, as we call them. And so that's where you can air your ads. The price for local ads varies dramatically based on what market you're in. Um, you know, an ad in market one might be $500,000. An ad, excuse me. Sorry about that. At times, I do wish I had somebody else to talk to so I could take a break. Um, Sorry. So yeah, so you basically have, in market one, which is New York City, their an ad for a local station might make $500,000. I'm just making that up. I have no idea what it costs, but let's just say it's $500,000. In market 20, that might be $100,000. In market 50, maybe you're down to 40 or 50,000. In market 100, you might be down to 10,000. In market 200, you might be at 1,000. Your price is going to dramatically drop because your market size is going to drop. So in New York City, where there's like 4.7 or 6.7, I forget how many million people, you know, there's going to charge a lot more for that ad. If you're in market 100 and your market size is maybe 300,000, you're going to charge a lot less. And you're also going to pay less. Like, you're not going to pay CBS or NBC the same amount of money in market 100 that you are for market 1. So everything's kind of relative to your market size. I always say, just because you're bigger doesn't mean you better. It just means you add a zero. So when you're comparing like market 1 to market 100, the same issues happen in both places, but everything in market 1 costs twice as much or 3 times as much. Hopefully that explains answers your question there, Nils. Tony says, "Can you explain your station's backup plan?" Yes. So we had, like I said, CBS provided several feeds, and so we had receivers tune to those feeds at the station. We also had satellite dishes at the transmitter site tuned to those feeds. So we were prepared if CBS lost their uplink, their transponder, or satellite, we were covered because had the backup feeds. We also had redundant connections going from our station to the transmitter site. We always have an A-B pair of radios. So we take our signal and broadcast it from our studio to the transmitter site, where then it goes out to the viewers. We always have an A-B path for that. And so that's normal every day. Doesn't matter what day it is. There's A-B. So if one radio dies, the other unit just takes over and automatically, and we're good. We don't even notice it. And for an event like Super Bowl, we had a plan C and plan D. So plan C was we did a regular live shot, like using a microwave truck, and sent the same signal that we sent via A and B out via microwave to the transmitter site. So if we would have lost the normal path, we would have that being sent out. And then we also used a cellular bonding router and a receiver, an IP receiver, as a fourth path. And that receiver is a special kind of receiver called a grid receiver, and it has access to every one of our stations in the company. So if the building had burned down or lost power completely, we could have switched the transmitter feed over and called up any one of our sister stations and aired the game from there, therefore bypassing the station. One of the things we also do is we run a local backup playout system. And so we have the normal playout system, and then it has its own backup. And then we had a tertiary backup that was not even connected to the network. So if we were to get hacked or there was some sort of whatever issue, loss of internet or whatever, we still had a third system that wasn't connected to anything else. And so it could play out spots void of internet, void of the network. And we locked that in on Friday. So like we had that box ready to go on Friday and then unplugged it from the network. So it was ready to go for days. And that could be playing out spots as well. So we had tertiary systems for play out. We had, 7 ways, I think, if you count them all up, 7 ways of receiving the game. No, 4 ways of receiving the game. Yeah, and then I'm going to get onto that. There was at least 7 ways of us getting that game last night and then sending it out to the viewers. So a lot of different ways of getting the video in to the station and then to the viewer. So, and like I said, when our station could have burned down and the viewers would have noticed a slight glitch while we switched encoders at the transmitter site, and then we would have the game back up, and astute viewers probably would have noticed, but the average viewer may have just been like, well, that was weird. Why did it go away for 5 seconds? And then they would have been moved on. So we don't do that for anything else because most days it just, it's a lot of effort and money to put into to do those extra steps. And so, as I've said before, the Super Bowl is the biggest day in you pulled out all the stops. So Toro says they can do simulcast that way, but we need infrastructure to do it. You could limit the latencies to 40 or less using all around this method. Yeah, I mean that's like I said. I remember reading about Amazon doing something. With their infrastructure, they could probably do a pretty cool multicast setup, or at least very regional servers. Who knows? I don't know. Should probably look that up actually. See what Amazon's doing these days, because they had definitely a system set up for that. Oh, my friend just gave me the numbers. Actually, that's hilarious. Let me share them with you. That's interesting timing. So, hot off the presses. So it was, according to CBS, it was the most watched telecast ever, with a total audience draw of 123.4 million average viewers across all platform. CBS, of course, who had the game, led the way with 120 million viewers. Not sure who accounts for the other 3.4 million. Super Bowl 58 is the most watched streamed Super Bowl in history, because of course it is. Every event from now on will always be the most streamed event because streaming's increasing. More than 200 million viewers, 202.4 to be exact, watched all or part of Super Bowl 58 across all networks. This is the highest unduplicated total audience in history, and up 10% from last year's Super Bowl. I'm guessing the fact that it went to overtime led to some of that, but there you go. Hot off the presses, the numbers for the game. Stay tuned for your late breaking news. So let's just... Oops. So yes, it was record views, as always. I can't recall the last time the Super Bowl lost viewers. I'm sure it's happened. I just can't recall. But damn, yeah, that just 123 million average viewers. And what's the population of America? U.S. population. According to the latest numbers, it's 341 million. That's a projection by the UN. So if there are 341, well, let's just go to the census. The U.S. population is estimated at 335 million. Okay, so a little bit less than what they were saying. So 335 million and 123. So quick math says over 1/3 the population watched the game last night. I mean, you can't get 1/3 of people to do anything together these days, yet alone watch one TV event. So to get a third of the population to watch one event, that's why it's the biggest thing in television every year by far. And I think of the top 20 things last year in TV, 19 of them were football games. So, like it or not, the NFL rules when it comes to TV. And so that's just how it works. Um, Oops. Actually, David, I believe, well, yes, you're right. There are more people behind one screen. But I do believe now um, that Nielsen, the measuring company, does factor that in. I forget how they do it, but there was something about they were going to do that. They were going to take that into consideration. Um, but yeah, I mean that's crazy that 123 million people watch the same event. Yeah, I mean that's more than likely. um, so I can tell you right now that I'm fairly confident that Fox, who has the game next, already started selling out the game or started selling the game for next year. They've already reached out and said, "Hey, Disney," or "Hey, insert advertiser here. Uh, you got great reviews or you got great ratings on your ad last night. Do you want to buy next year's Super Bowl?" And so uh, the NFL and the networks have a ad deal. So basically, the NFL says you're allowed to air X number of minutes of ads, um, per quarter or per half. And so, hold on a second. Like I said, I really wish I had a co-host. Sometimes, because my throat is really dry. Anyway, so like I said, so when you sign the deal for an NFL game or even a college football game or a college basketball game, how many minutes of ad revenue or advertising you can put in that event. And you know where it is. Like in high school football, you can't stop the clock. So you only get breaks at the end of the quarter or if there's a timeout or a player injured. So you only sell what you know you have. And so, like the NFL, you have, I don't know, 7 minutes per half. I'm not sure how that actually worked out. I don't keep track of how much ad revenue or how many ads there actually are. But based on the contract, how many ads you get. And then you go through, or the networks go through and say, okay, well, knowing that we have 10 minutes per hour or whatever it is, they're going to divvy it up. And they're guaranteed, or they're required per our contract to give us a percentage of that. You know, I don't know what it is. I'm not privy to it, but so they just go, okay, fine. So of this game, we have to give, let's just say 10% to the stations. So if we have an hour worth of ads, I'm making these numbers up, then they're going to get 6 minutes of ads. So, um, and they know this way ahead of time. Like it's all written in the contracts, how many breaks they're going to have. Um, Now that only counts for this in the game. Like when you're doing pregame or postgame, that's your own broadcast, so you could do what you want with those. But when it comes to actual game, they're only allowed to stop the game for so long, and so that's what they know going into the thing. And this is in the contract, and then therefore they can divvy that up based on their contracts. So there was some discussion about, hey, do we get breaks in overtime? And the answer is no, we don't. So if there were any breaks in the overtime part of the game last night, that would be all CBS. How they sell overtime breaks is beyond me because I've never had to deal with that before. I don't recall seeing breaks last night, but maybe there was. My guess is if there was, it was probably a freebie or a gift. So, like, whoever paid the most for an ad, if there was an overtime break, they probably aired that ad again, is how I would guess. Again, I don't know. I don't work for CBS. I have no inside information. But that's just kind of my guess of how they would do it. That's how I would do it if I was running the thing. Because you're never guaranteed overtime. So you don't want to sell an overtime break because you're never guaranteed it. So how long does planning? They're already planning. I guarantee you, Fox has talked to the NFL about next year's game and where is Super Bowl TV schedule. So next year's Super Bowl is on February 9th. It is played in the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. It is on Fox. That was. Oh, I should probably share this. Be a better streamer. So, Super Bowl 59 is going to be played, like I said, February 9th. It is on Fox. They've known about this since 2018, and I'm guessing that the Fox deal was probably named a couple years ago. So, and like if you go fast forward to next year, this one's gonna be played in in Levi Stadium. It is gonna be on NBC. And then you go forward even further. This is in 2027, SoFi Stadium, and it'll be on ESPN, ABC. So these things are already planned. So the networks are already talking about this, and they've already walked through it, and they've figured out okay, we have the game. Let's start talking about what they want to do. And so yeah, they're planning way, way, way in advance. They already know some of these things like who's going to do what, because you just start planning out that far in advance. I mean, when you're talking about writing a check for billions of dollars for the rights, you start planning early. All the camera crew and everyone else involved, are they aggregated and flown in? It depends. They really want the A team, so they probably flew a lot of people in, because they typically do the same crews, week to week. So if you're looking at like the game, the crews like you see on TV, well, there's also crews behind them that match. So there's like the A team, the B team, the C team, and the D team. So Jim Nance and Tony Romo are the A team for CBS. So they work with the same directors and producers and people like that behind the scenes. They usually work in the same trucks all year long. So they kind of go together as a team. And so, yeah, they all got flown in. With as much production work as they needed, they probably flew more people in. Vegas has a lot of people. It's in terms of a media market, it's got a lot of productions, a lot of stagehands, a lot of stuff like that. So it's a great city to get people to work for because, there's people who do stage work all the time and video work and whatnot. So I don't know the make but I'm getting probably 70, like of them in because they want the regulars they're used to, but they definitely hired locals, I'm sure, because you don't need uh if you're just pulling cables, behind a camera, or you're helping to set up, microphones, you don't need to be the usual guy. You could just be a guy who knows how to do it. But if you're pushing that button or you're calling the show, you want the usual guys to know that flow and work together. So there's definitely a threshold where a lot of things are local, but above a certain level, you have people who are flown in for sure. And to be honest with you, these day and age, this day and age, they're probably people who worked that game who were in their basement in a little studio like kind of like mine, running replay or running graphics or helping to do whatever. Because nowadays, a lot of production is done what they call Remy style, or where not everybody is on site. You take the truck on site, you take the cameras on site, but you may send all those cameras back to a control room somewhere else, and that's where the show is switched and directed from. Or if it's a small event, you may have a director who is in their basement and has a multi-viewer in front of them, like I do, and they're calling the game from their basement because they can watch the multi-viewer and they have access to everything they need, and they're calling the game from their basement. The producer is on Zoom or whatever they're using, and he's in his basement or attic or wherever he's at. And so they're people, who could do a game and they're at home. Now, Super Bowl Sunday, I'm sure the few people working remote were few and far between, if any. It's just not worth it. It's not the chances of things going wrong is just too high. So I doubt anyone worked remotely, or very few people did, I should say. Someone probably did. But a Tuesday night basketball game from Mississippi, that crew probably works from their basement or another house, because to travel somebody to Mississippi for a basketball game, it's not necessarily economically feasible to do so. What did I do? Well, usually what I did last night is basically sit around and watch the game and be on a conference call. So, checked on all the stuff. You make sure all your backup paths are working, and whatnot. But then basically you're kind of sitting around hoping nothing goes wrong. And last night nothing went wrong. So, yeah, I basically just sit on a conference call and make sure everything works. And then when the game's over, you tear it all down and you go home. I got home probably around 12:30, a little after 12:30. So kind of a long day. Was there for about 8.5 hours. But is the life in TV. Tony says, great answer. Thanks. That's what I figured with overtime, because you never really know. Yep. Yeah, I honestly kind of predicted that game would go that way too. Um, I knew the 49ers were going to score points, but I had a feeling, and I just kind of knew that Kansas City was going to be better because they've been there before, and in that crunch situation, they just seemed to make it happen. Um, I thought the game might be a little too much for Brock Purdy and the 49ers because they hadn't been there in a while. Um, so I kind of figured, like, a friend of mine asked me before the game starts, he goes, do I bet on 49ers or the Chiefs? And I go, Chiefs, just bet it. He's like, but the spread's 2.5. And I go, I doubt it's 2.5 now. It's probably lower. And of course it was lower. But cause I figured a 1 point game. I really did. I was like, it'd be like a 1 point game. It'll come down to like a extra point or, a field goal or whatever it is. Like, I just knew it'd be down to a 1 point game. I didn't expect overtime, but I definitely expected a 1 point game. So I kind of called that too. What is an A team? The best team? Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So you have. They don't call them the A team necessarily. Like they're not branded that, but like, and you basically know your people and you know your teams, and you have, you know, the A team or the team that has the people, the best of every position, the best producer, director, TD, audio, talent, reporter. You have your people who are like, they're our go-to team. They get the best production truck. They get the best help. Then you have like a B team or a C team, and then they may have a smaller truck and they may have less people on staff, and maybe they don't have a Skycam or whatever it is. So you kind of have your varying levels of productions, and Sunday Night Football, you only have one team because it's only one game a week. Monday Night Football is the same way. You only have the team because you only have one game. But with CBS and Fox, because they have typically 5 or 6 games a week, they actually have like different levels, if you will. And I'm not going to say like it's written down, like as in the A team, but you kind of know like this is the best game of the week. Therefore, the A team's going to go do that game. And this is like the worst game of the week. And so we're going to have this team do this one. You can kind of, if you really watch a lot of football, you can kind of pick up on that. Like last night in a lot of these bigger games, they had 2 sideline reporters, one for each team. But if you watch a typical game on a Sunday afternoon, there's only one sideline reporter who goes back and forth. That's the kind of difference between like the A team and the B team, because the A team is going to have 2 people covering the teams, whereas the lower games are going to have one. I don't remember seeing any fails. No, I didn't either. At that level, you kind of expect none. Mistakes obviously happen, but you kind of expect that. And what I saw, um, what I saw last night was what I expect to see every year is a flawless production that most people wouldn't notice any mistakes. So, oh, there, yeah, I should have. You should have reminded me. I should have turned the damn thing off. Probably all the network. I would, if I had to bet, and I haven't seen like I said, I haven't seen any articles about it yet. Maybe it's there and I haven't read it yet. I would bet money there were probably 30 to 40 engineers working on the broadcast last night who were not assigned to a position, who were just there to make sure that the various different levels and things went off without a hitch. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 30 people. Like honestly, like I would assume high 20s to 30 people like me who would just, your job is to make sure people in replay can do their job. And so you hang out in replay all night and that's all you do, and you make sure replay works. Then one engineer is assigned to graphics, and so one engineer's whole job is to make sure everybody in graphics can do their thing. And there might be one assigned to audio and video, and there probably 2 or 3 were assigned to transmission to make sure that the signals left the truck and got to where they were supposed to go correctly, and they were on site and they had their monitoring gear and they were watching everything. One of the games. Hold on, I got to cough again. Sorry about that. I was at a game, and there was one guy whose whole job it was to watch the wireless camera or cameras. Maybe there was 2, but his whole job with another engineer was to make sure that the wireless camera that was walking around had the best RF reception that they could get. And so he was watching a monitor, and it had receive level, and it had power level, and it had quality of service, and it had all this stuff. And his whole thing was to watch this monitor and talk to his people, his buddy on the radio, and to adjust whatever he needed to adjust to make sure that wireless camera that was walking around the stadium was working as much as it could. So that was at a fairly big game, not like last night, but like fairly big game. And so there was one guy, there was actually two guys. One was in the field, one was back at the truck, and that's all they were caring about was the one camera. So when I say 30 people were probably there just to make sure nothing went wrong, I fully believe there were probably 30 people there who were just there to make sure that the production trucks and all the associated gear worked for sure. In fact, when I did the NBA All-Star game a couple years ago, there was two engineers, me included, on the one truck. Every truck had at least two engineers, and some of the bigger trucks had three. And so, if we look at that graphic, if there are 19 trucks, assuming that everybody had two engineers, which is guaranteed, that's 38 people right there. So, and I'm sure there was probably more than that. So my 30 people number is probably low, honestly. I pity the fool. I kept thinking that when I kept saying A team. I'm like, do I go for the impression? Do I not go for the impression? Um, yeah, no fails, just like our YouTube channels. Well, I don't know. Did I try calling? I never tried to call it, make a phone call tonight, so you never know what could happen there. Oh, yeah, we reached 1AJU. Oh, definitely. You know when JAU, when it lags. Oh, I need to fix that. I really want to know how to do QoS. I need to figure that out in pfSense. I really do. The coordination is crazy. Yes, it's insane. I can only imagine the amount of meetings and conversations and the planning they went down, and it's kind of always been my dream to work one of those events. Probably not going to happen just because I don't do sports enough to warrant being on a team like that, but you never know. I mean, because you got to do that for years. I mean, before you can even probably even be considered to go work a Super Bowl. Um, so I was just happy I could work a NBA All Star game a couple years ago. Um, oh yeah, easily. By the way, welcome in, Eric. I don't think I noticed you were here before. Yeah, there were engineers probably everywhere around there last night. Is the word engineer overused? I think in some way, kind of depends. Um, Technician's probably a better word for most people. Um, I don't know. I like being called an engineer. I consider myself an engineer. Uh, really? That's a thing still? Who verifies you? Like, I'm curious. Like, I say I'm a broadcast engineer, but I don't have to take a test for it. Nils, if it's entertaining, is it really a fail? Um, no, the live stream that I'm referring to where I couldn't make a phone call, I thought was a fail, but everyone told me that they had a lot of fun, so I guess it wasn't really a fail. Um, I mean, yeah. Jeremy, if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A team. Yeah, Toro says the word engineer is overused. I think in a lot of context it might be, yes. Um, oh, Toro says his role got renamed to be an engineer from technician. Yeah, I mean, um, I forget what exactly you do, Toro, but yes, I, yeah. I know in Canada it's a whole legal term and the requirement like a doctor or lawyer. Hmm. Well, you know who could answer that question? Bob could. Bob's in Canada. Welcome in, Bob. Bob got a cool new toy. I don't know if I could share it or not, but pretty cool toy. Um, yeah, I wish I would have saved the video. I'm pretty sure it's gone by now, but Ashley sent me a video of Joe laughing like a hyena in the car at that stream. Um, I wish I had that video somewhere. I'm sure Ashley still has it. Um, but yes, it was Joe was laughing. You know what? All right, so let me go. In my book, if you can use draw.io, you can call yourself an engineer. Toro works for an ISP in a very technical capacity. Okay, that's right. Oh, yes. I remember now. Dog walking was late. Sanitation engineers. Yeah. Your role got renamed to be IT. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I think Joe was here. I don't know where Joe went, but maybe if Joe wants to send me that video again, if he has it, I'll share it. Um, Let me go find Bob's photo. And let me, I'll save, I guess I'll save both of them. Yeah, I'll save both. And then I need to load them up. So we're going to change gears a little second, or a little for a moment, and talk about what Bob just got. So I thought this was pretty cool. He showed me this last week. So, oops, Bob just got a little custom shelf to mount his PF Sense Lenovo machine in, and then route the cables back to the front to make it a rack mount. So I think this is pretty cool. I am, yeah, I think it's pretty damn sweet. I love the idea of having like front mounted ports if you're doing a rack. All the high end gear has front mounted ports, so therefore this would fit perfectly in your rack. Um, and then here's a better picture of it, and yeah, I think this is pretty damn cool. Looks like it even has HDMI and is that USB on it, Bob? I don't think you're using it, but it looks like it has that ability to pass through the HDMI port from the back too. That's pretty sweet. So, Bob, you're an admin, so if you want to share the link to that, you can do that. Bob says he needs to get, um, needs to get 1.5 cables because one is too short and two is too long. Racknex, yeah, Racknex is the company. Yeah, that is very clean. Very very cool. Yellow is for the V Pro port. Is that V Pro? Is that like IPMI? I don't know Lenovo very well. Um, yeah, that is very cool. David says that's I need that. Oh, mini display port. Okay. Okay, yeah. Essentially, it's IPMI. Yep, there's the link in case you were curious. Um, I think Bob has a quad port Intel NIC, if I'm not mistaken. Um, like vaguely remember the specs from a while back. Yeah, it's a quad port Intel NIC. I think the Lenovo has a full height PCI slot, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, very cool. It kind of looks like it's all metal. Definitely looks like it's all metal to me. Oh yeah, it's a 10 gigabyte quad Intel NIC. Yeah, I think Bob, I think mine got lost in shipping. Is that right? Is that what happened? Alrighty. Oh, Joe's back. Just a lot of talk about the big game from last night. Um, kind of what I did and what happened. We shared some pictures from Las Vegas. We were just showing Bob's new shelf that he got for his PF Sense router. Uh, so I guess you'll have to go back and watch video on demand. Uh, Help that watch hour count increase. Um, we did talk about the video where the stream where everything failed and you were laughing hysterically in the car. Um, Ashley sent me the video of you laughing, and David Grishko wanted to see it. So I don't know if you can send it to David or if you still have it, but there was a request to see you laughing hysterically at my inability to make a phone call. Jeremy says the rack necks people make B-Link and or units for B-Link as well. Good to know. They make racks for all kinds of routers. Okay. I'm sure it does solve a problem, especially the rack mount. You could get that thing. That's nice. Oh, Ashley has it. You're still at the studio. Okay. David says, "Don't worry about it." It was funny. I to watch Joe laugh hysterically was entertaining. Um, so yeah, so I think that's gonna wrap it up. Like I said, I didn't get home till about 12:30, 1 o'clock last night. I didn't fall asleep till like 3. I had to go back to work this morning, so I'm starting to get a little tired. A foot of snow. Wow. Um, I think we've got like 3 inches total for the year so far. Actually, not even that. I don't think it's even 3 inches. It was 61 degrees here the other day. All right. Well, anyway, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to thank you all for being here as usual. Trying to think about what to cover next week. Not quite sure yet, but we'll figure out something. So, anyway, I want to thank you all for being here and hope you all have a great night.